For some people, life follows a predictable path to a place where they always expected and planned to be. For others, life turns down unnamed roads to places they never heard of, where they never dreamed they'd be, and perhaps, knowing them what they know now, would have preferred not to go. But whatever path you take, if you live long enough, sooner or later you come to a time and a place in your life that is the edge for you. It's a feeling as if you were standing on one side of a ravine, looking out at the other side where you would like to go and thinking, can I make it? Should I even try? Some people come to their edge and don't know it because they never look past the ground directly under their feet. Some people know they've reached a point of decision, but they're afraid. Some people stay stuck in that place because they have made peace with the edge. They accept that what their life has become is all it ever will be, and they learn to live with that limitation. These are usually the pillars of the community, by the way. And then there are the people, not many, but a few, who get to the edge and just leap. These are usually the crazy ones. Sometimes they come to grief. But sometimes, every once in a while, they discover whole new worlds. My name is Michael Hurley. I'm 58 years old. A year ago I sold everything I owned, bought a 32-foot sailboat nearly as old as I am that I renamed Nevermore, and decided to sail off across the ocean. I don't really know where I'm going, and that's the fun of it. This is my story. Like anyone my age, I have a history, and like a lot of people my age, I am resisting being defined by that history. I was married for the first time for 25 years. I was married for the second time for 5 years. If you hadn't doubted yourself before your second marriage, you're going to doubt yourself after your second marriage. But in between those two failures, I had a great deal of success. I raised two wonderful children who made it through college and into careers and lives of their own. I spent 32 years practicing as a trial lawyer, first in Texas, then in North Carolina. I didn't get rich, but I was never poor. I've written a few books and hope to write a few more. And through it all, I've been a sailor. In 2015, I sold my law practice, after which my second marriage promptly collapsed. At that point, I considered crawling into a depressing apartment somewhere in a crummy suburb and getting a dull job to pay for my attempt to hang on to a fearful, small life, doing small things for the relatively small amount of time I had left on the earth. But when I took a good look around, I didn't see anything holding me back except self-doubt and a sense of shame that my life hadn't turned out as I thought it would. The steel key ring I had carried in my pocket for 41 years suddenly had no keys on it, and it dawned on me that the world was handing me the keys to my future. I had a sense that although everything around me looked the same streets, the same houses, the same neighborhoods and town, I was really standing alone at the place that Robert Frost described as two roads that diverged in a yellow wood. And the decision I made would take me irrevocably down one road or the other. So I sold or gave away everything I owned, took a plane from America to Europe, and carried my feelings of shame and doubt across 500 miles to the ancient pilgrimage of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. The great miracle of the Camino is that it's not a place but a journey. You are walking every day beside people from all over the world, many of whom are broken and hurting in some way and seeking to rid themselves of some pain or part of their past. What you learn after walking 10 or 15 miles every day for 500 miles are two really essential life skills. One is to let go, and the other is to keep going. That's our fundamental task on this earth. From the moment we are born and start to grow, we are letting go of the past and making our way toward the future. Life stops for no one. You're on a journey, whether you know it or not. You're a pilgrim in this world, whether you admit it or not. No one gets out of this life without failure and pain and disappointment. The key is to understand that failure and disappointment are not the end. Even though at the start it feels like you'll never get through it, when you finish the Camino you realize that your pilgrimage was not the end either. Life is not a movie where the credits start rolling up and all the players are fixed in the places where they were in the final dramatic scene. People go on. The story goes on. Life goes on. You're not the first person to pass this way, and there's still a lot of road ahead that others have traveled before you. Let go and keep going. That's the lesson of the Camino. When I finished the Camino and left Spain, I didn't head home. Everything I owned I carried on my back, which gave me a delicious feeling of lightness and freedom to go anywhere I wanted. I had never been to Great Britain before, and I had a novel to finish. So I spent the next 6 months writing and living as a boarder and a guest in private homes in England and Wales. I found the British people and their country and way of life fascinating. For all its age and history and all the civilizations that have come and gone and grown here, this is not a crowded place. They have miles and miles of green pastures and lovely hills. There are ancient woods and farms and moors and rugged coastlines. There are more pubs than churches, and, sadly for the churches, more people in the pubs on Sunday, eating roast dinners. Politics and soccer are blood sports. I reveled in meat pies and stout ales, bangers and mash, curried everything, breakfast tea served with milk, no sugar, sausage rolls, McVitie's digestives, porridge, crumpets, Lyle's golden syrup, mince pies, mulled wine, cream tea, high tea, salt beef, Stilton cheese, Christmas crackers, roast lamb. And did I mention the stout ales and cask ales and more lagers and ciders than there are stars in heaven? The royal parks of London are beautiful, immense, historic green spaces where well-behaved dogs roam by the dozens, happily off the leash. There are bike lanes that go everywhere and trains that will take you anywhere on time for not a lot of money. And wherever you go, you are reminded that you are standing where Shakespeare, Dickens, Tennyson, Shelley, Wordsworth, Byron, John Milton, Rudyard Kipling, Oscar Wilde, John Bunyan, Chaucer, Dylan Thomas, Beatrix Potter, A. A. Milne, Jane Austen, Thomas Hardy, and Tolkien all stood. England is where the idea that became America was born. And then you stop to consider that all of this history, and glory and death and life and hope and despair and longing and literature, came out of an island kingdom smaller than the size of Texas. I love Britain. I am astonished by this place. While I was still in Wales, in the fall of 2015, I decided to buy a boat, I should say another boat, and go voyaging. I found one just right for the job near London, a 1967 Camper Nicholson 32-foot sloop, fiberglass, full keel, weighing in at over 13,000 pounds. These boats were built in England to stringent Lloyd's shipping standards beginning in the 60s. Some 400 overall were made, and 8 are known to have completed circumnavigations. The work to get Nevermore ready to go sailing wasn't done by the time my visa was due to expire, so I had to get out of England and spend the month of April in 2016 in Paris. There's nothing I can say about Paris that hasn't already been said. I was there an entire month, which is a long time, but still only a month, which is not nearly enough. So Paris and I had not so much a romance as a brief fling. Yet anyone who has spent an hour in this city knows it is a place of such style and finesse and beauty, in its art, its architecture, and its people. I was treated with kindness and consideration by every Frenchman I met, including the Navy pilot, who made 2 passes low over my boat in the Bay of Biscay just to make sure I was all right. They are a gentle and genteel people. I will never forget my time among them. I sailed from Calais, France, aboard Nevermore on May 5, 2016. The non-stop passage through the English Channel and out into the Atlantic to Palma spanned 18 days and 2,200 miles through mostly fair winds and following seas. The Portuguese trades did not disappoint after I rounded Cape Finisterre. They blew gently and steadily from the north for the rest of the voyage. Some people I meet ask me why I do it. Well, let me correct that. Everyone I meet asks me why I do it. That is, why anyone would set out in a sailboat across an ocean for days and weeks at a time. And the truth is, I've never found a really good way to answer that question. I think I answer it differently every time, hoping that this time it will make perfect sense, but I'm not really sure I entirely understand it myself. I can tell you a story, though, that might explain it. I was stuck in traffic once on a big 4-lane road that runs past a bunch of strip malls, including a Walmart, a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Dick's Sporting Goods, Best Buy, and nail salons and discount chains, and on and on. And I'm looking around as the steam is coming from all the cars beside me, and our engines are chugging and burning the gas that everyone is griping about having to buy for too much money. And I suddenly realized that there was nothing as far as the eye could see that fed my soul. There were burger shacks and barbecue shacks and chicken shacks and a big movie Cineplex showing really awful, soul-sucking movies about nothing even minimally significant to my life. And there were chain restaurants that are the same in every little town and big city in every part of America now, so that no one place is different from the rest. The employees in the same uniforms and the same convenience stores are selling the same coffee and the same donuts, and all I could see was concrete and asphalt and weeds coming up on the sidewalks and big ugly blaring billboards trying to sell me a new phone and a gym membership and a tattoo and a chiropractic session. And when you got out of the car into the parking lot 8 rows away to walk to the Walmart, you stepped onto the smashed paper drink cups someone had thrown on the ground and the food wrappers in the trash, and I remember looking around and thinking, we slaughtered the Indians for this. This is how we define prosperity now. This is how we define the good life. So to help yourself endure all of this banality day in and day out, you tell yourself this is not your life, that you just need to work hard enough and long enough, and if you do, you're going to create some special enclave that is going to be really meaningful and tasteful and elegant and special. But in the meantime, you are sitting for great chunks of your life in an office somewhere, worrying about where to put the periods and the commas in some memo that no one will read, and answering zillions of emails about nothing that, when it's all over, will amount to a great giant steaming pile of nothingness, and you are running back and forth like a rat through this maze until one day you wake up and realize, no, this is your life. This spiritual wasteland you are living in is never going to be a wonderland, and you don't get your money back. So I decided to leave it. I decided to leap. Not because that was the most responsible thing to do, or the best thing for my career, or part of some long-term financial plan, but because deep down I knew that if I didn't do it then, I never would. But that explains only why I might have decided to chuck it all, drop out of the rat race, and reinvent my life, which is something a lot of people do. How do you get from there to a decision to cross oceans in a small boat? What is it about long-distance ocean sailing? For most people, sailing is something they once did with a friend for an afternoon on a bay somewhere, and they were really scared and amazed by it all, and they motored out to a place where they sailed around in circles for a couple hours, then motored back to the marina and got in their cars, drove to a restaurant to eat gobs of food seated at a table that didn't move, then home to a hot shower with unlimited water, pull an ice-cold beer out of the fridge, switch on the telly, and finally go to sleep in a bed that was perfectly still and level and not trying to pitch them out onto the floor. Long-distance voyaging is not that. An ocean crossing on a small sailboat has more in common with Columbus than Captain Ron. It's still a voyage into the unknown, even today. You don't really know for sure where you're going to wind up, how many days it will take you to get there, what storms you might face along the way, what equipment may fail, and what you will do when it does, when you're coming back, or if you're coming back. You are running on the wind into an experience that is as close to absolute freedom as you can get on this earth. It's that same feeling you had when you were a kid and you had a brand new bike and summer vacation lasted 2.5 months, which was forever. You'd wake up to a beautiful sunny day and you'd have nothing in the world to do but to take off on that bike. And you felt the wind in your face, and you owned the road because the cars had to stay in their lanes and worry about gas and batteries and oil and all of that. But you didn't have to worry about any of it because your bike was a magic carpet. You could go anywhere for as far and as long as your sense of adventure could carry you. That's what it's like. But to be honest, after you get over the whole romantic notion of sailing off to some tropical island, there's a lot not to like about the sailing lifestyle. Imagine walking into your kitchen to get a glass of water and having to struggle to hold onto the edge of the counter with one hand because the entire kitchen is tipping 30 degrees sideways. And you can't just turn on the tap because you have to pump the water out. And if you're pumping with one hand and holding the edge of the counter with the other, you realize you don't have another hand to hold the glass. So you spread one leg back and one leg to the side to brace yourself like you're in the starting blocks for the 100-yard dash so you won't fall over while you pump with one hand and hold the glass with the other, which is why you have packed 300 bottles of water so you can just screw off the top when you want to drink. And then there's the bathroom, which is not called a bathroom but a head, because it's nothing like a bathroom. You don't go into some quiet place, shut the door, and read a magazine. You go to do battle with the toilet because it's a moving target and leaning sideways, and it wants to defeat you. But eventually you learn how to pee sideways, and how to cook and clean and drink and eat and sleep sideways. You develop skills for not killing yourself and others, for not allowing all of your dishes and silverware and pots and pans to go flying through the air. You learn to shorten sail before the storm comes up, and to check constantly and everywhere for chafe and things that are loose and about to fall off, fall in, tip over, break, come apart, and fail. So the question a lot of people have when I tell them this is, why bother? Why not just hunker down in some cozy condo somewhere, head out for a quiet dinner, and come home to sit on your balcony and look out on the ocean? Why sail over it in a relatively fragile and uncomfortable vessel? And here, I think, is the best answer I've come up with. Do you remember the feeling you had when you were a kid, and your mom and dad let you sleep in the treehouse in the yard with your best friend? What made it cool wasn't that it was as big and comfortable and warm as your real house, but the fact that it was a treehouse and you could live in it anyway. It wasn't that it had all the creature comforts, or any of them, but that you were happy to be there without all those things. It wasn't that the telephone made of 2 soup cans and a length of string was the best technology you could get, but that it was good enough, you could do it yourself, and it was actually exciting to see it work. And when you woke up the next morning and looked at the leaves of the trees and realized you were just fine and warm and safe, you wondered why everyone didn't live in a treehouse. A sailboat is a treehouse on the sea, and it's very cool that it actually works at getting you thousands of miles from point A to point B, just the way the Pilgrim Fathers got from point A to point B. It's a perfectly compact, sustainable home that travels with panache and style and doesn't need an asphalt highway or a trailer park or an electric outlet or $50 worth of diesel every 300 miles. It's that new bike on a summer day, only instead of taking you to the neighborhood sandlot and back by dark, it's taking you to Treasure Island, and you may never come back. The island of La Palma in the Canary Islands, where I arrived on May 23, 2016, is a gem. As I approached the island from the north and east, a huge volcano rose from the horizon, the first land I had seen in 18 days. The Canary Islands are owned by Spain. There is a sweetness and a kindness to the Spanish people that I saw on the Camino and experienced again here. Family is at the center of their lives, and the church is at the center of their families. There is a relaxed air about the place, partly because of the delightful Spanish custom of the afternoon siesta, which shuts down everything in the city except the bars and the cafes between the hours of 1 and 5. But it's also because of the sun and the sea, which imparts a slower pace to everything. This is a place to savor at small cafes on the Maritime Boulevard and eat slowly, one small plate of tapas at a time. I pulled into the marina in La Palma and booked a slip because it was almost June and I am headed across the Atlantic. I knew Nevermore would have to wait there until after hurricane season ends in December. The fascinating thing about this island is its biodiversity. It is, in fact, a World Biosphere Reserve. The volcanic mountain that created the island millions of years ago rises to more than 8,000 feet above sea level. At the bottom, you have a tropical climate and black volcanic sand. On the way up the volcano, you pass through forests of pine and fir and great rock bluffs that remind you of Canada or the coast of Maine. And above the tree line, at the crater of the great volcano that opens for miles, you could almost imagine you are standing in the Grand Canyon. Along the cafes beside the sea, and in the little narrow cobblestone streets, I saw something else that struck me and that reminded me of the Camino. In Spanish culture, the elderly are revered. They are not cloistered away, but instead have a vibrant social life in the town square. You will see los viejos, the old folks, come to the cafes for coffee. This is a Catholic society, and divorce is rare. Men and women still grow old together here, and it is a lovely thing to see. The men sit with other men and talk by the hour, and the women are not far off talking with other women. The little children are welcomed and loved and adored by their elders, and they wander all over the village in a feeling of safety and well-being. People have been going to sea for centuries in search of the answers in their lives, and I suppose I was one of them. After a year of wandering around France, Spain, England, and Wales, and after 2,200 miles and 18 days at sea, trying to make sense of all the things that have happened in my life, the paths I have taken, where they have led me, and why, I haven't found the answers to those questions, but I did have an epiphany. I discovered that my inability to answer those questions is a clue to the answer I am seeking. Letting go of the past means letting go of our need to explain and make sense of the past. It's like prosecuting a case against a ghost, or rearranging the furniture in a house you're moving out of and never coming back to. The answer is to stop trying to explain the past and to prepare instead to live the future. The answer is to stop asking yesterday the question, why, and start asking tomorrow the question, why not? The answer is not to stand looking back at the path that brought you to the edge of your life. The answer is to leap. The islands of St. Lucia and the Caribbean are beckoning Nevermore 3,000 miles across the wide Atlantic, and the day for sailing is coming. I'll see you on the other side.